Global Values 101. Introduction. I read Global Values 101 many years ago when I was desperate to make a difference. I'm as desperate as I ever was, maybe more. I remember being so enthralled by it. Then a few months ago, I tried to remember the things that stood out for me, and I couldn't. So this is me going down memory lane to remind myself some important lessons from this collection of interviews of organizers, agitators, and resistors drawn from a wide range of professions. Brief background about how Global Values 101 came about. Brian Palmer, the lecturer who put it all together, with one of his grad students, Kate Holbrook, explained, quote, during the neoliberal 1990s, Harvard subcontracted jobs and paid miserly wages to the people who mowed the lawns, mopped the floors, and cooked the potatoes. An employee at the world's wealthiest university could work full-time and be homeless at night. Many students pleaded on these workers' behalf, but to no avail. Then in April 2001, 50 students stormed into the Harvard president's office. They carried backpacks full of food and cell phones and announced that they would occupy the office until an adequate living wage was paid to the janitors and cooks. The campus was electrified. Daily demonstrations took place outside the president's office, and dining hall workers delivered free pizzas to the occupiers through the windows. Dozens of people began camping in tents in Harvard Yard, ready to bear witness at any hour if the police tried to remove the protesters by force. This went on for 21 days, during which time the university's power holders, Harvard Corporation, were being increasingly embarrassed by the media coverage, with stories spotlighting the gap between the gold and parachuted money managers and the hard-knock janitors. On day 21, the corporation agreed on a living wage for the workers. In that atmosphere of engagement and hope, my students and I began to notice the injuries of inequality that secured our affluence. We interviewed cooks and cleaners and security guards. In a university fed by the donations of billionaires, we read Barbara Ehrenreich's words about a different kind of philanthropy. The working poor, she wrote, are, quote, the major philanthropists of our society. They neglect their own children so that the children of others will be cared for. They live in substandard housing so that others' homes will be shiny and perfect. They endure privation so that inflation will be low and stock prices will be high. To be a member of the working poor is to be an anonymous donor, a nameless benefactor to everyone else. End quote. Brian then started to work on a course around these themes. Then September 11th happened. Students from a wide range of disciplines, all with a common interest in influencing a world gone wrong, began to register for his course and fill it. Regarding the way he structured the course, Palmer says, quote, my teaching philosophy began with the recognition that neither I nor anyone else had definitive answers to the ethical and political questions we were exploring. Quote, my teaching philosophy began with the recognition that neither I nor anyone else had definitive answers to the ethical and political questions we were exploring. Before each semester, Kate and I scheduled a dozen or more individuals to visit the course for in-class interviews. Our guests did not give any lectures. Instead, the students read work by or about them. Lecture in French means reading. Groups of students then prepared questions in advance and posed them during the interviews. End quote. I go through my favorite bits of the interviews below. I just selected the bits that stood out for me, and I'll try and explain why they grabbed me in this particular moment that we're living in. Let me know what sticks with you and why in the comments if you're able to. Get the book and read it. It's worth the time. Alright, before we jump in, let me close with a quote Brian Palmer shares. Quote, as the 13th Saint Albertus Magnus put it, the greatest of all human pleasures is to seek the truth in conversation. My colleagues and I hope that the conversations in this book will spark many others. End quote. I hope so too. Let's jump in.